Mike DeCourcy joining me from the Big Ten Network and the Sporting News. And if you go to the Sporting News, you can find DeCourcy's dozen. And at the top, he has the Purdue Boilermakers, and I cannot disagree with him. Purdue, it just seems like the most complete team right now because they have the immovable object in Mount Edey, who I don't care what you do, he's going to get 18 and 13, and that's if you're hanging on him. And then they did the one thing. I hate to point fingers, but you look at Indiana, they knew what they needed to add desperately. Well, there was a number of things, but the guard spot was absolutely one of those. They didn't do it, and it has just continued to claw at them this year. Matt Painter adds one guy to his roster, the guy he needed. And Lance Jones has been a difference maker. It's just he has seamlessly fit in with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Mount Edey, and not only fit in, but he's a high point.
He's been fantastic. And, it's funny. I was talking to Raphael Davis, one of my two partners on Big Ten, two analyst partners. Rick Pizzo, our host, is great. And then the two analyst partners, John Beilein, the great coach at Michigan, and Raphael Davis. And Raphael and I were talking about Purdue and its chances in March. And one of the things that I speculated about was a worry about their ability to make threes when people sagged off to guard Edey. And I know that statistically they are one of the leading three-point shooting teams in the country, but some of that gets built up by how you do against the lesser opposition. What happens when you play the best teams? Now, I know Fletcher Lawyer had a great game against Arizona, but he hasn't been as productive lately. And so statistically, there are some high points in their three-point shooting, but I looked at Lance and I said, do you think that there's enough? And he said, Lance is the difference. And I said, but he's only shooting, like at that point, I think on the season, he was shooting in the 35 range. And Raphael said, it's different now. So I looked it up in advance of this past weekend's games. We had the big game against Wisconsin coming up. And so we talked about it on the big show on Saturday. Lance Jones is now shooting 39.5% from three-point range since Big Ten play resumed in January. So the competition on the regular, every game, Big Ten level, high stakes, full crowds, teams, going after Zach, trying to figure out a way to stop him. And he's out dropping threes at almost a 40% clip. And that's what you need. You need guys that can do that. And he does not shy away from any shot. I sometimes worry a little bit about a particular shot, but it's not a persistent problem. I think that he's made a huge difference. And defensively, he was terrific on Sunday against A.J. Storr. He did a fantastic job making Storr's life difficult in what was a home game for Wisconsin. And Storr's one of the best wings in the league, and Lance locked him up. I mean, he got off shots, but they were not the best shots on average. And I think he went something like 6 of 14 from the field, if I remember right. And a lot of that was, most of it was Lance.
Is he playing the three?
Essentially, yeah. It's somebody like in the world where we still have a Julius Erving award. There has to be technically a small forward, I guess, but that's what he would be. And he was guarding the three, AJ Storr, who is definitively a small forward at the college level. He was guarding him, and he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, because that gives them 3-point threats at three different positions. Well, right. Probably four, but.
Well, when they play Mason Gillis, they have four. When they play Trey Kaufman-Renn, they do not. But Trey gives them great rebounding and somebody that maybe can physically at times take bodies off of Zach. Although that's not as he's not he can do it physically, but he has to gain the attention of the defenders, and they're mostly worried about Zach.
Yeah, without question, that three-headed monster, if it's rolling, and you've got Mount Edey there, it's like wave the white towel. I don't know what you do. I mean, you're going to have to, if they have it rolling, that's the thing. They have to do this for 6 games.
Yes.
And that's what they've not been able to do, is find consistency for multiple games in a row. I mean, they've done it in the Big Ten, but you have to do it when it's the NCAA tournament. Oh man, it's different because it's like rolling the dice. Who do we have this week, and what kind of style are we going against? Right. What are they going to do? What are they going? What are they going to present? The different challenges, and that has been
because they get ahead of so many teams. And this is the one thing where Purdue has not made great progress, is they do not handle pressure well. That's still a problem for them. Inbounding the basketball against pressure. You saw it on Sunday when Wisconsin was trying to scramble back because the game was nearly over and they needed as many possessions as possible. Purdue got itself into some trouble there. And that's something that they have to get better at, because they're going to get ahead of somebody. And I take you back to 2016 when Syracuse played against Gonzaga and Virginia in Chicago, in what I guess was the Midwest region. And Gonzaga kicked the heck out of Syracuse for like 32 minutes. And so Syracuse just turned on a full court press, a scramble press. They're not a pressing team, but it's winner go home. So they put on a scramble press and they turned over Gonzaga enough and they won the game. They weren't a better team. They weren't one of the 4 best teams in America, but they put on a scramble press and they beat Gonzaga. Now they're in the Elite 8. Virginia's kicking their tails for 32 minutes. Same thing. Put on a scramble press. Virginia succumbs to that. And instead of making the Final Four in 2016 for the first time, Tony Bennett has to wait to 19 and that particular Purdue miracle. And so so Syracuse gets back to the Final Four, not because they were one of the 4 best teams and not because of the zone being vexing, as it often was for their opposition, but just because they were desperate and their opposition didn't handle it. And that's something that Purdue, I think, between now and March has to get better at. They have to become proficient at advancing the basketball against a desperate team.
As far as the Big Ten goes, you've got Wisconsin, who, boy, the game against Purdue, speaking of the devil, that was a gigantic step for Purdue in winning the conference, because that was a hurdle they had to get over. They have one more hurdle, in my opinion, that's at Illinois, and boom, and then that's done. But man, if that game goes the other way, Purdue's in a different situation in the conference race, which it doesn't change their prognostications for the NCAA, but it would have just changed that for the conference, which I don't think they would not have been happy with that, but they have the bigger prize in mind. There's no question. How much pressure is on the Boilers to not just to not lose in the first round, but how much pressure is on Matt Painter to get to the Final Four? Because like I said, this is it, baby. This is the last year you're going to have the 2-time college basketball player of the year. And I know he's got another 7-footer in the wings, but I don't care. It is not Mount Edey. Mount Edey has been the college player of the year, will be for 2 years. That does not happen very often. And there's a reason for that. It's hard to accomplish. And so he has, I'm not going to say he's got the best team, because that 2016 team was pretty good. Jaden Ivey, they got close, but this is it, man.
Well, I think the pressure for someone like Matt, he's making a very, 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 very comfortable living. So there's not pressure from that standpoint. He'll be fine. If if someone said, okay, we didn't, and this is not going to happen, Purdue knows what they're doing. But if someone said we can't get to the Final Four, so we should make a change, he's still he'd get another job in 13 seconds. He's one of the half dozen to dozen best coaches in college basketball. So there's no pressure from that standpoint. The pressure is that this is the opportunity. This is the one. I remember when I covered the Cincinnati Bearcats in 2000. I mean, Bob Huggins had made the Final Four at that point. He'd made the Elite Eight twice, I believe, in addition to that. And then it had, while I was covering him, 3 consecutive second-round losses. And with teams that were all seeded either second or third. And so that 2000 team, that was like the moment. They knew that Kenyon Martin playing at a level that very few college players have reached. And they surrounded him with multiple guys who were going to the NBA. And so and they had great chemistry for the most part. They were having a problem with one player, but I think they had resolved that. And then ultimately it got ruined by Kenyon Martin's injury in the conference tournament. But that they knew it wasn't about external pressure. It was about internal pressure, that this is the opportunity. This is your chance. And this is in college sports, this is the only chance you get, because your team's going to be entirely reconstituted from year to year in almost every circumstance, in pretty much every circumstance. I mean, name it like this, and the transfer portal didn't change that. Even if you had the same guys, you had a different team. That's been reality in college sports for 100 years. Even if you had all the same 5 players in your starting lineup or the same 8 players in your rotation, everything was different, because players have different priorities after they go through a year. They may start thinking about the pros, or they might start thinking about, I think I want a more prominent role or more of the ball or whatever. So it's always changed. But it's different when the roster is going to change, because that's when the pressure really amps up, because this is the only shot you get with this group. You're going to have back Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith and Miles Colvin and Cam Heide, and you're going to have a lot of really good players on next year's team. But you're not going to have this group. You're not going to have Zach Edey again. Almost certainly. I believe he's eligible if he wants it, but with people talking about him now getting drafted in the lottery, there's no reason to take that risk by coming back again.
I didn't realize he had another year.
Doesn't he have the COVID year? This is his 4th year.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I believe that's correct. He's not in a COVID year. He is in his 4th year of college basketball, and he was on the Boilers in 2020-21, excuse me. So this is his 4th season. And so he has another year if he wants it. But Jonathan Givony from ESPN projecting him into the first round, into the lottery of the first round, tells me he's a first round pick now. That happened about 2-3 weeks ago. And John is not he's not going to throw that out there. He has a very good eye for talent. He's been doing it for over 20 years, but he also is very connected. And so somebody in the league said, yeah, it's going to happen. Like as long as Zach stays healthy, it's going to happen somewhere in the first round for him. And he'll almost certainly take that.